Samoa! I totally wasn't just sitting here realizing I wasn't live and thought I was playing it. And welcome back to Star Trek Discovery, Season 5, Episode 10, Life Itself, where it has been a long, 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 long road getting from, back Season 1 where it was all awful and stuff to here where we're yeah, but it's my this was I've had this in my head for like ages, the Enterprise theme song joke, and I'm now fumbling it. From there. It's been a long time, but it has, but the time is. Can you not tell? It was a long one that's taking over. The Discovery live streams, right? I've mentioned before a lot of the problems with reviewing Discovery, but one recently, kind of through a lot, I'm not gonna say all, but for a lot of Season 5, that's been a problem, and one of the driving forces to why the Discovery streams don't really go as long as the others. And in fact, it has directly been this reason that streams have ended before. I haven't really directly addressed this, but basically, by the end of the episode each week, I'm very often kind of like bored of the episode. And then I go, oh, I gotta like go live for like an hour or like honestly any amount of time. But God, this one, I'm bored. This one went on for so long. Even the beginning, like, this is, it weirdly, like, kind of a lot happened, but also not a lot happened. A lot of what did happen was just really weird. It didn't make a lot of sense. A lot of stuff randomly happened that didn't really mean anything, but just raised a lot more questions than it answered. It didn't even answer a question, just raised a lot more questions and problems in its, yeah. I honestly don't know if I'm gonna do. What's up? Welcome, Jack Slaw. I don't know how much of a scene by scene we'll really do. I think we'll talk generally. This is the end of Discovery. It's done. I've also got the buffer time people talking in the back, confirming that yes, Calypso sort of implies the Federation doesn't exist. At least here. I guess we don't know where they took the Discovery. We'll get to that. I did not watch this one, so I'm here for the cliff notes. You know how you expected it to end? It was probably like that, but then add an hour. There you go, Jack Slaw. I got a lot of things. Where even was I gonna begin? I did have something to start, but that was like honestly back here. And there was a good hour of the episode after this point. The Progenitor's tech. Let's start with the Progenitor's technology. Now that we know exactly what it is, right, and what it does, I kind of think we kind of expected it, but it feels really underwhelming. Everything about the resolution. Jack Slaw, prepare for a Cliff Notes that's entirely out of order. The resolution feels entirely kind of pointless, and like I don't know what the crew learned, because the conclusion at the end of the story seems to have been what I thought. I thought that was the point we were at the start. I thought that's kind of what the characters believe. I mean, maybe it's more that I'd come to the obvious conclusion, like a lot of fan bases, that the technology either wouldn't really matter or like there is like because they elevated the progenitors as sort of as if you were going to go meet God and be like, this is the person who designed us, and like they're gonna tell us the meaning of life. It's like, what? But it's like, no, like they already told you. They just want you to exist. You're a legacy. You're a hello, we're here. You're also just a monument. But the technology, right? What it can do is it can create life. It can't bring people back, which I don't, part of me wants to complain that, the one guy scientist came to the conclusion, like, it can make life, therefore it, maybe can bring people back. And everyone rolled with that. But also, the fact that the resolution of that was like, nah, they're just wrong. I have to like, because so many times I complain that someone in a show, like, well, there's actually one in this episode, someone like speculates something. The example I love to use is when Spock first learns that the Romulans look like Vulcans, right? Everyone's like, yo, what's up with that? You know, why do these guys look like you? That's weird. And Spock's like, his response is basically like, I don't know, maybe they're a lost colony or something. And now suddenly, because Spock, with absolutely no evidence whatsoever, speculated right on the spot that the Romulans were a lost colony, bam, that's what everyone goes with, as if it's like gospel. It's like, what? that was just a guess, you know? So I kind of like that someone said, I don't know, maybe it can bring people back to life. I guess that's tangentially related. Basically, the galaxy rolled with it, and then the answer was no. That was like just what some idiot thought. Yeah, so Jack's Law, they couldn't bring him back. I mean, they could basically clone him. They're like, we could make a new Locke, but he won't have any of the memories. Like, that was basically... So congrats, we can clone people. The progenitor's tech, though... well, this tech is very interesting because... I'm pretty sure with this state of the galaxy, since the progenitors created a whole bunch of life, there is literally no application for this technology other than something immoral or pointless. Right? So you can create life. You could basically create as much life as you want instantaneously. There are some advantages to this, but it's nothing unique. And so, the example kind of used is that you could theoretically hit a button and now have an army, like however big you want. You won't have a ship for that army. We do seem to be forgetting this, but I'll let it slide because we've had, like, organic ships before. We've had, like, GOM2 and stuff. So theoretically, you could design a living ship. I will let that slide, but I would have liked a reference because, like, an army of 1 billion people isn't going to do much unless you have people with 1 billion ships. But anyway, you... what can you do, right? You can design whatever life you want and make infinite amount of it. Obviously, the army we've mentioned, that's, like, pretty immoral. But in order to make life, right, you need a reason. You're not gonna just, like, do it because, you know? It's like, yeah, we got this technology. Why don't we make, like, a Squirtle? I don't know, let's just see what happens. I just want to write that in when they ask and I will get a bad grade. Oh, your Cliff Notes. I'm sorry, have I said something incorrect? How do you know? You didn't watch the episode. But... So why are you going to create life? Well, the progenitors did it because they were alone in the universe. They were dying out, they were alone in the universe, and they wanted a few things. They wanted a legacy. They wanted some sort of, like, hello, we were here monument. I mean, humanity's done stuff like that. But also, they wanted a galaxy that had what they didn't. They reached out into the stars, and they explored the galaxy and found they were alone. And they didn't want life to end with them, but they didn't want life to have that experience. They wanted a busy galaxy, and so that's what they made. Great. Brilliant. That's like a good use. I'm also in favor of there being life in the galaxy. But the Federation, like the galaxy as it is now, it has all this life. Like, it's teeming with life. If anything, it's an issue that the galaxy's, like, a little crowded and there's conflict and stuff. There's no benefit to, like, create a society. Be like, right, you're the bling blongs now. You go live on this planet. There's nothing to gain. There's actually loss because now you have to support your population of bling bongs. So the Federation isn't going to use it for that. Like, no one would use it for this. Like, maybe billions of years down the line when you're, like, the last species and you're gonna go extinct, you can make the next generation. But, so then why are you creating life? Well, it'd have to do something, and in order for you to create the life, as opposed to use existing life, it'd have to do something that existing life doesn't want to do. So essentially, what, you'd be designing, like, a slave race or a servient class. I mean, this is immoral. You clearly don't want to do that. The only things I can think of is, well, not all life is intelligent life. You could design incredibly nutritious fruits, loaded like ideal foods and crops that can like grow anywhere, that can support a population that are tailor made to this place. But we don't really have famine. Like that's useful. We can do that already. Um, like I assume that when you design life, you can't just say like give me spiky boys. You know, you have to actually literally design it. I don't know if you're down there at like the base code level, like or A G G T T A. There we go. You have spikes now. If the technology theoretically, it's almost like I don't know an AI where you tell it what you want. Like I want a fruit that grows on a tree with this temperature and this conditions, yada yada, and then like a computer designs it. That's useful. I imagine the Federation could do that as well. But we also have replicators. Like if there's a food shortage, we can replicate food. So there's like there's nothing really this technology can do except be immoral. So the resolution of like let's basically destroy it, let's throw it in the black hole. I'm like, I mean, I guess like what that's kind of the obvious not even that, more generally the obvious solution is to not use it, because it doesn't give you anything but bad. It's like a nuclear warhead, right? There's no reason to make them because they just make everything worse. Like why would you? Oh my god, this is a TV commercial, or it makes food plates. Yeah, it's great tech. This was a Stargate. Man, look, wait, it gets weirder, man. Like, let's also discuss, right, the kind of twist. The progenitors didn't build this technology. They found it. Somebody built this before the progenitors, which, of course, basically necessitates that there was someone before the progenitors, you know? They theorize in the episode, the progenitors, like, we theorize that whoever built this created us, and then we created you. And they even say, but maybe it goes further. Maybe there's a chain since the dawn of the universe of a species creating a species that creates a species. So I guess the progenitors are the first species that decided to create multiple. Theoretically, you don't have to do that, but I don't really know how to feel about this. First off, it technically doesn't break the chase, the TNG episode, but it really bends it. It's the sort of one way to go, oh, that's a neat revelation. You go and watch the chase, and you go, oh, that's wrong now. So, you know, way to ruin a great moment. But, because the exact words in the chase is, like, okay, I shouldn't say exact words. But the whole thing is, we were the first life in the galaxy to evolve. God dang it. Star Trek TNG, the chase script. I read this before. Let's, you know what? Okay, it's not a private, okay, there we go. Before all this. Life evolved on my planet before all others in this part of the galaxy. Well, I mean, they're in this part of the galaxy. It's like you're really bending it because no, apparently the progenitors believe that there was life before them, presumably in the galaxy. It's a little nitpicky. I kind of like the idea of this sort of infinite cycle that all life exists because the previous generation decided to go again. I don't know. I kind of like this idea, but I also really like the idea, the original story of the progenitors. I might prefer it, of their life is rare. It's just exceedingly rare. And so the first species evolved and was lonely. And so it made everyone else, knowing that it would never live to see its children. No, that is a better story. At least personally, that's preference. But you have this setup where, for all we know, potentially the only reason life exists, the only reason life has existed for billions upon billions of years, is because people use this technology. So we've thrown it in a black hole, meaning that this might be the last generation of life ever in the universe. That's a very permanent decision to make. And they just casually toss it in. There's even a line in their show where it's like, what do they say? It's not deduce. We reason that whoever made this technology in the first place could do so again if they're still around. That's a pretty darn big if to bank, like, life existing on. That's a big if. Like, the progenitors didn't know these people. The progenitors seem to believe they died out. We have no reason to believe they still exist, and quite frankly, we have every reason to believe they don't. But you're like, yeah, they can make a new one, I guess, you know? Like, if we ever die out, they could just make it. It's like, what? So I guess in the Star Trek universe now, there's a very real chance we're the last generation of life. It sounds like the writers were not trying too hard when they were just letting AI do most of the work. No, I'm not at all gonna blame AI. Like, that's very strange to let AI write your script. And no, I think it's bad to just say this was bad, therefore it's AI. Which, to be fair, I don't think you were getting at. I think you were saying it is as bad as if an AI wrote it. But I also don't think it's good to say that, like, no, let's not bring AI unless AI actually comes into it. I haven't seen Stargate. I can't speak for Stargate. I vaguely know, like, it's extremely vague notions. Yeah, I'm hoping by the time the stream's over, someone recently just rewatched Calypso, and I want to know, because there's just a lot of weird stuff. And like, actually, what's really weird about having the tech be like the end goal of the episode, like the big threat, is that literally every other aspect of this place is actually much more interesting and much more, like, radical. Like, we do have artificial gravity, but this is a space that exists beyond the standard three-dimensional space we exist in. That's pretty gosh darn interesting. Maybe you could have done something with that. By the way, I really hate the implication where Burnham, again, this is what I was saying, where Burnham wildly speculates that the progenitors, this space, gravity doesn't really work like it does in our universe. Therefore, the progenitors must have existed beyond the three-dimensional spatial dimensions we live in. I hate that because that's going to be in Memory Alpha now and be like, the progenitors live beyond the three-dimensional space. But that just adds so many weird questions. Like, first off, it elevates them to sort of gods. It elevates them to being greater than the life they created. Which I really do. Again, I just like that I like the progenitors. The only thing special about them is that they were the first. In every other aspect, they're just like any other species. I just find that more interesting and more engaging. But, like, the jump to... What was it? I don't... It's just a weird decision, because, okay, let's say the progenitors live in greater than the three dimensions. There's some fourth spatial dimension that we don't experience because we're three-dimensional beings. So why then did the progenitors create all life to be three-dimensional? Why did they create life at a lower level dimension? It doesn't make sense. Like, we'll get this theme of weird things that are just answering a lot, like creating way more questions than they didn't answer in the first place. David C., welcome. Crap Friars and Discovery? That's the thing, is like, okay, this episode dragged. It had a pacing issue. But, like, I wouldn't even call this episode particularly bad. It just... it's definitely not good, and that's kind of what Discovery would hit a lot. Um, I mean, Drexla, I wouldn't say that they were afraid to push boundaries. I mean, I've just gone over some ways they've rewritten canon, albeit lightly. It's just, to me, it's not, you're not adding anything interesting. The idea of that perpetual cycle is interesting, but the stuff they've added, they've either undermined or I just find it less interesting than the stuff that was already there. Yeah, totally dragged. Honest, it really did. Like, even the first part was kind of slow, and just had a lot of weird things going on. Like, Burnham knew the wind was gonna go in the right direction, but this part with Maul really bothers me, because you have Maul and Locke kind of team up. They're like, hey, you need me, I need you, you've been around on this place, or at least I need you not attacking me. So Michael convinces her to work together, because Michael believes that everyone will be better off if Michael and Maul work together. Michael has no problem bringing Locke back. Everyone's happy if they work together. So then, basically, immediately after hearing that Maul doesn't trust the Federation, which she already do, Burnham attacks Maul. She, like, incapacitates her. She trips Maul over. I'm actually going to let this scene play out. So Burnham makes Maul trip, and Maul drops the gun she's been having. Captain Michael Burnham then, by the way, I'm on board right now. This is why I get off board. Doesn't grab the weapon that Maul has been carrying and has just slid out of reach. There we go. You can see it right now. Captain Michael Burnham decides instead to leave the gun within arm's reach and run. Look, she's grabbing the gun. She's still grabbing the gun. That's how much time Michael Burnham had to, like, kick the gun off the edge. And now, because she's run away from Maul, who she left with a ranged weapon, Maul shoots her. Actually, apparently she doesn't. She gets into range. And starts shooting Michael, who obviously can't run away because you left her with a gun. And wait, it gets better, Jack's Law, because after this happens, Michael Burnham then tries to argue with Maul. Like, the next thing she says is, it doesn't have to be this way, Maul. We can work together. And Maul rightfully says, the fuck? You started this. You attacked me. I was working with you, and then you attacked me. And Burnham spends the whole weirdly CGI fight, and weirdly slow mode as well, fight, trying to convince Maul that they can work together after Burnham was the one who attacked Maul, completely unprovoked. David C., this is the scene I will let you put crap writing on. Yeah, never run from a gun. Never bring your legs to a gunfight. I wouldn't blame the directors. The director just did what the script said, man. He's like, I don't know. I'm going to try and frame this in a way that makes it look like it makes sense. Like, if you want to give it benefit for the doubt, maybe you could say Burnham assumed that the trip would cause Maul to throw the weapon off these ledges, because they're quite fragile. They're quite thin. It's a reasonable assumption to make, but it's still like, it feels quite weird to not even bother to look back and check. You know what I mean? And honestly, the arguing that it doesn't have to be this way is just inexcusable. And the writers know that it's weird because Maul's response is, you attacked me. Like, yeah, I agree it doesn't have to be this way. So why did you do this? And then it makes it weird when Burnham convinces Maul for a second time to work together, because Maul should trust Burnham specifically, not the Federation, not anyone, but Maul has to trust Michael Burnham, who just demonstrated that they're an untrustworthy individual. This was my plot complaint right here. As I said, I really don't know if there's going to be too much. I'll be honest, I've only stuck with Discovery all these seasons because it's branded as a Trek show. I didn't stick past episode 1, David C. I watched episode 1 on CBS, and I was like, oh. I think that was genuinely my reaction was, oh. I only went back after Picard, because, you know, at that point I had bought Paramount Plus. I mean, yeah. That's the reason. I mean, the reason, a lot of people will say, right, like, if you don't enjoy a show, why stick with it? For one, I have a slight excuse, is that this is the final season of the franchise I review constantly, and so I would have left happily, like, way around here. But I'm like, you know, you might as well just for the review. But beyond that, it's because I care about the universe. I care about the Star Trek universe and what happens to that, even if I don't care about Discovery. And then, as they make future Star Trek shows, like, knowing about Discovery is really good. Strange New Worlds probably wouldn't have been as good if I hadn't watched Pike in season 2. You know, sort of things like that. And I'll say, no, I did enjoy season 3. I really enjoyed season 4. That's on YouTube. By and large, this season is, like, fine. I'll tell you what, the ending, this episode specifically is going to make it really hard to ever go back and rewatch, because, like, yeah, but then I gotta watch the, like, hour of ending. Even Lord of the Rings doesn't take this long to end. I don't know. Hopefully Academy's better. It's just, one of the biggest problems, though, again, is that I don't care about these characters. And it's just far too late to salvage that. I don't have any connection. I really don't care. And so if TNG had done this, heck, if Voyager had done something like this at the end of its last episode, I might be a lot more positive of it. It honestly still would have dragged a bit. But, yeah, I was just bored. I was on my phone for a decent chunk of this episode, but by God, not as long as I wanted to be. David C., thank you once again for the $20 donation. I did kind of hope Dr. Colburn book were gonna bond a tad more intimately. I mean, I read somewhere that the ending, kind of what they did, because they got to film more scenes. Honestly, that's probably why this is half an hour longer. They got to film more scenes. I assume the wedding was part of it, but I'm really not sure. It might have just been when they were older. That it was going to be like season 6's arc. So maybe I just ran out of disk space to stop recording. Maybe they did actually have, they were going to in season 6. Like, this was not a known cancellation. Everything before, like, the last half hours they didn't know. But yeah, honestly, what I'm left with after this episode specifically, I've said before, I didn't really care that Discovery was ending. You know, it had good, it had bad, whatever. I'm not particularly attached. That honestly seems kind of like the general mood. But after this episode specifically, I'm like, if you're telling me that we're not going to get this ever again, good. Because it was... I'd be curious to see the people who love Discovery, how they really... Like, did they really love this ending stuff and connect with it, or was it just way too slow? Because I don't know. I mean, people who have loved Discovery from day one are obviously extraordinarily different from me. Like, I'll acknowledge that season 1, arguably, from what I remember, is like a fine season of television generically, if you take it out of the context of Star Trek. I remember the whole Ash Vok thing just being really confusing and not making sense. I've talked loads of times how Burnham didn't start the Klingon War, and it really bothers me how everybody believes that she did, even the people who have enough information to know that she didn't. But season 2, man, season 2 doesn't even work on, like, a plot level in any way. I've gotta someday just go through season 1 and season 2 on watch-alongs. Is like, just, this is the Venti stream. I don't know, this is the stream so I can get this stuff off my chest, but this doesn't work on any level. I mean, I do kind of try not to talk about it too much, because in order to really defend that, I genuinely would have to go scene by scene and explain why all of them don't work. And when I don't do that, it's just saying season 2 was obviously bad. And that's just not helpful, and that's not convincing. It sucks that a DEI show, I'm not sure what that means, such as this, has such poor writing and left bad taste in so many people's mouths, so many writing inconsistencies. David C., I would be curious to know what you would consider an inconsistency. Because I don't believe Discovery is inconsistent, at least internally. Like, yeah, I could throw a lot of, especially season 1 and 2 inconsistencies. Jexlaw, I wanted to see him and the Vulcan take the tech, take it back from him. Like, it's too powerful, and they could be frustrated. Yeah. I mean, it does seem like a waste, and the whole point of, like, well, it's too powerful for one culture. Okay, yes, I agree, but you are the United Federation of Planets. If anybody can come up with a solution to no one culture owning something, you would think it's the collective of 350 planets. Like, sure, giving it to the Federation, it still, like, screws over everyone else, but why not, like, also invite every culture? Why not share the technology? Sure, some people might not want to play nice, but you could always throw it in the black hole last minute, like, surely that's the ultimate threat. If the Breen yell at you and is like, we refuse, we're gonna invade, be like, yeah, all right, and then throw it in a black hole. Be like, okay, now no one gets it, thanks. Because there's a lot of not actually, like, inherently bad technology. And again, I am in favor of life existing in the universe. Maybe we should keep this around, The thing is, the tech is powerful, but anything that would actually be worth doing is either amoral or you can do it some other way. Honestly, the most powerful thing about the technology, biologically, like, the architecture is enough, but biologically, is that because it draws power from those primordial black holes, it's seemingly, like, energy's not a problem, right? Technically, the Federation could replicate 200 trillion peach trees, but they would need a lot of energy to replicate 200 trillion peach trees. The progenitor's technology could just do it, like, with the stuff at hand, and that is the most powerful thing. You can get around it, but, like, the Federation probably doesn't need 200 trillion peach trees right now. But that's kind of there is a point. It just really isn't the catastrophic thing. And it just irks me that they're like, you could make an army out of this. It's like, yeah, but an army still needs a spaceship. Like, it does have use, but, you still need to get it somewhere. You could push... Yeah, worst inconsistency was that they had no need to jump to the future to get away from control. Oh, no, thank you, David C. Yeah, no, Season 2. By God, Season 2 is full of stuff like that. That is the biggest problem. I still don't know why, like, Discovery is classified. I don't understand. It's because they didn't know about it in the future. But, that's one of, honestly, the biggest, like, plot blunders I think I've ever seen. At the time, I said Season 2 of Discovery was genuinely the worst season of television I'd ever seen. Of course, this was before Season 13 of Doctor Who, but I really don't want to watch the 2 worst seasons of television I've ever seen to figure out which one's worse, so in this season, here we go, this is what I was more interested in. They could have just jumped away so many times to avoid the Breen. Yes, but if they jumped away from the tech, then the Breen get the tech. And there was a line after they defeated the fighters that someone was like, can we jump to the Dreadnought or something? And someone said, no, there's too much debris. So there was a reason they couldn't just jump within that battle. But yeah, speaking of the Breen, I know other Star Treks have done the whole, like, blow up the nebula thing, but it really bothered me in this one that, like, the Breen fighters are surely also aware that this type of nebula is explosive and that we shouldn't fly into it. And so they follow Discovery into it, which never goes. Honestly, just never go into the fiery nebula. Where's Discovery gonna go? Like, they can't leave. If you want Discovery to leave. And then even in the CGI shots, when Discovery fires its torpedoes, they're just sitting there. I don't know where in the episode that is. But, like, it shows the fighters just sitting in the nebula getting blown up. So, this bit I do like kind of the bit with Saru. Surprise, surprise. It does feel kind of weird that Saru basically informed the Breen of an impending military attack. Like, there were definitely risks and big... You probably... No one should have mentioned that. Like, the Breen Primarch, when Saru was like, I know you have a military base in this nebula, because if you didn't, you would have taken the trade deal offer. And the Primarch was like, yeah, you right. It's like, no, deny. Like, why don't you just say no? Like, bluff. I don't know. Say it just wasn't that interesting. Like, that was the thing. Okay, I want to know this from the triangle thing. Actually, well, David, see, I'll get to that. They dropped so many things in the show over the seasons. Whatever happened to all the synthetics shown in the first handful of episodes in the 32nd century from Season 3? I don't think we saw any synthetics in Season 3. We saw some holograms, but none that were shown to be sentient. I agree this was a problem. But as a counter-argument, David, how would you know if somebody was synthetic? Like, all those random guards standing in the Federation headquarters, how would you know that they're not organic? Because, like, by Picard, they look the same as an organic. So that's kind of my counter. Like, sure, you could say you could have made it more explicit, but that's the counter. This whole triangle puzzle irked me as well. We've had this a few times where it's difficult to write puzzles because there's always going to be audience members who, like, happen to clock it right away, and there's always going to be ones who just literally never get it, even if you were to explain it. And ideally, the audience would figure things out immediately before, immediately with, or immediately after the characters. And that's when you come to the realization. I've said it before, Enterprise Season 3 nails this, like, every time. What was something oh my god, the Doctor Who. Next week, come on, because there's a brilliant moment in this week's Doctor Who episode where I realize a little detail immediately before, like, the characters do, and it's like a bone-chilling But anyway, make the one from the many. So obviously, you've got to make the triangles into a big triangle, and that's what they come to. It's like, well, look, many, we build a triangle. And Burnham, very cleverly, goes, no, it's not from the many, it's between the many. Which, honestly, that's clever. Like, oh yeah, you're right. Even Mull's translation error, that's a great thing to come of. But then my obvious solution is, okay, so you make a hole. Like, you make a hole. Why are you spending so much time on this? You make a hole. And then when Mull started building it, I'm like, Mull, why are you not making a hole? Like, does it need said? Even if we ignore the wordplay of between. Yeah, thank you, David C. It was obvious. Even if you make, if they just figured it out. If the scene ended where Burnham was like, we have to make it from the hole, I would have applauded. Because I'm like, you know what? That's clever. Like, you have to, because you're probably like, oh yeah, many from the one. You make a big triangle. And then you point out, no. It's not from, it's between. That's your clever moment. That's when most people, I think, would get it. And because even if you ignore the wordplay, right? There are literally only two possible ways you could make a triangle from little triangles. I think narratively we can accept that these are the many. In real life, theoretically, they could be something else. But if we accept these are the many, that you have to make a one from. There are literally only two possible ways to do this. Make a triangle out of the little triangles, or make 3 lines so there's a triangle in the whole. There are literally only two possible solutions here. You tried one, it didn't work, and now, by God, we're gonna scratch our head and have a good think. And she even has the, yeah, it's happened a few times, just a lot of the puzzles have felt kind of obvious or not particularly clever. And I sympathize that puzzle writing is, like, hard, but, it's not, like, I think you should have realized that you shouldn't have spent as long as you did, especially on an episode that's an hour and a half long, on, like, what do we do? Well, if it's about reality, you need the... oh, yeah. No, that's the other thing that bothered me, is they were like, oh, but remember that, like, shadow over nothing. The whole empty spaces thing. It's like, Burnham, this isn't some fourth-dimensional complex puzzle. Just make a triangle, Michael, please. Well, if it's about reality, you need the two-person to get that fourth point. Yeah, I mean, that's another good point, but I would like us to forget the whole progenitors are fourth-dimensional beings, in the same way we forget that the Doctor's half-human. Let's never discuss it again. Did we have anything cool in here? Hey, actually, I might be wrong about this, but I think this scene... let me mute it. You know how... I don't think the hologram ever, like, flickered or stuff when Saru's talking to the Breen. I think it was just a still image, and they realized that the audience is intelligent enough to know that. Ah, no, it literally flickered right then. All right, take back your praise. It irks me. I genuinely think, right, the reason we have transparent holograms and they flicker and stuff isn't that they like don't have faith in the audience. It's that they think the audience would feel it looks cheap if it's literally just a guy standing there, right? But the entire point is that they have the technology to just make holograms. We don't, like, they don't have to be... We've even seen, like, the mirror technology they have, where, like, it's a holographic mirror, is completely solid. But anyway... meeting a progenitor, I mean, I'm not too surprised. It makes sense, no comment. I like that they at least had the decency to explain that, like, he knew because it was a memory of the Trill guy. Not, I don't know, he's religious now. Like, it does feel kind of weird that, like, why here? Why now? It's like, I don't know. Maybe you're literally reenacting a thing that this Trill once did, and that is the difference from every other moment in your life. And it's a reasonable difference from, like, every other Jahal that's taken place where this hasn't happened. I don't know. I feel like there is a very clear, at least there's a very solid scientific hypothesis to what's happening that no one's taking. I do like that they didn't commit to just, like, yeah, I don't know, there's stuff beyond. Because even if we say it in a sense that, like, there's more to the universe, narratively, it feels really cheap and lazy that you can now be, like, a character can basically sense that they, like, what needs to happen and sense the answer because essentially God told them, you know, sort of metaphorically. Oh god, yeah, here's the other bit. This has been a problem in the season elsewhere, but this one really hit me, and it's again one of the just, like, this isn't Star Trek that you've written. The Breen are kind of treated as, like, totally disposable. Like some evil, faceless collective, as opposed to the individual people they are. Like I mentioned before, the Discovery just murdered literally everybody in the Breen shuttle bay without mentioning it. That's a little, like, you know, they were in battle. Starfleet kills in battle. You know, that could kind of get away with. But, like, you have Rayner, who has a personal vendetta against the Breen and wants revenge against the Breen, order to send them decades away from the Breen homeworld, or to Voyager them, right? Which, by the way, last time when I was saying transwarp is fast, so the whole 6 minutes away from Deep Space Nine is where the Progender's tech was. Yeah, we can wipe all that away, because apparently the Dreadnoughts do go very slow. Also, you've made it weird how Kirk got there, but moving beyond that, that was already weird. You're just like, yeah, no one questions that. And it's like, okay, they're needlessly sentenced to be Voyagers, to never see their family or loved ones probably ever again if their lifespan is like a human lifespan. You literally could have sent them an hour away and achieved the same thing. What, like, this was needlessly cruel. It was never brought to attention. I think it was even supposed to be like oh, they're getting their comeuppance. But what have the Breen actually done wrong? They don't want this power to fall into the Federation hands, but, like, we don't want them to fall into Breen hands. Like, they would use it as a power grab within their own home territory. But as far as we know, this Primarch has a genuine claim to the throne. In fact, they do. Their plan at this moment is to resurrect Locked, the genuine heir to the throne. You could even argue that they're in the moral right here, because this would, in theory, bring stability to the Breen, like, hegemony, which has been chronically unstable, but now you never get to see your kid again. Or if you do, it's in 50 years. Yeah, I guess that's what the Federation does now. And okay, cool, have Raynor suggest it, but no one hesitates. No one says, but sir, and he's like, just do it. It's like, I would be surprised if you could find this in the Geneva Conventions, but this is like straight up a war crime. It was not a good episode. Yeah, no, I've said it. It wasn't. Like, if you cut it here, it would have been fine, but oh my god, all of that. Maul, I guess, is, like, pretty chill, honestly, about what's happened. They're treating Book... Like, where was Maul's arc? At what point did Maul realize that she's with family with Book? I don't know of anything that would have made her, like, playfully laugh with Book at this moment. I should think that her entire world has been shattered. And I guess he's been kind of, like, always reaching out, and he was the one who brought Maul back to Locke when he's like, no, this is real. He's dying. You see, I'm just bored. I don't even want to, really. And we get in, there's more, like, this is Daniels now. Let's kind of gloss over how he has Geordi's visor in Chateau Picard, fair enough. But there's no point in making Daniels Kovarax. It doesn't really do anything. Arguably set up stuff for Calypso, but we'll get to that. But what does this mean, right? It means, well, first off, I've lived many lives is weird, especially because he's been recast. Are we to believe that Daniels, like, this is literally a different body, or is this the old version of Daniel? Oh yeah, Jack Slaw, this is Daniels from Enterprise. Is this like the old version of Daniels from Enterprise, or is this literally a different body that Daniels somehow got? I'm not a big fan of the total change in behavior from Daniels that this guy now is, but okay, Daniels was active, what, 1-2 centuries ago? So does Daniels have an extended lifespan? Are we retconning when the Temporal Cold War was being fought? I think Admiral Vance says the Federation has spent the better part of the last century, which is itself a little bit of a retcon to move the dates around. But I guess we're saying this is what he does now that there's no time travel. Is he does these super secretive Red Directive missions that you're gonna hate anyway, but what else did it? He had Cisco's baseball. which, small world syndrome. But, so yeah, are we believing that Daniels knew these people? Did he scavenge them? I assume this is why he likes antiques, is because he was a time traveler. It just answers a lot of questions, and it kind of is pointless. Like, oh, it's Daniels' Hello Small World syndrome. I did know, by the way, that they were bringing back an Enterprise character. I was like, Daniels sort of makes sense, but he's still like, it was too long ago. T'Pol theoretically could have lived to maybe see like the progenitor tech, but good luck getting her back. I know I had a lot of other weird things. I don't actually know if this wedding was something they filmed to tie loose ends for the whole season, or if it was originally part of the ending, and I think that's bad. I'd be curious to know. It'd be cool. They didn't use telepathy. They just ever. I think you're talking about the. There is magic in Star Trek, yeah, in the other universe where Satan is from. I love bringing up this episode. Thank you for the excuse to bring up that time where Kirk's Enterprise met literal biblical Satan, and it turns out that Satan isn't actually a bad guy. He's just misunderstood. Thank you for reminding me. But no, like, there is telepathy. There are a few like more supernatural aspects for a sci-fi, but that's a new level of like, especially a main character can just sense what the plot needs to happen is just cheap. I mean, even Doctor Who doesn't pull that, right? And Doctor Who has like but the main villains of Doctor Who right now are like gods, like literally. So, Doctor Who wouldn't pull that. They promise us magic tech. Oh, the progenitor? I don't know. I'm glad that this century and this aesthetic will continue in Academy. Like, hopefully Academy is good. There's a lot of kid shows that, I enjoy. I mean, Prodigy. It's basically Prodigy, but reskinned. I've also just remembered it's animated. No, it's not animated. It's live action. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just nervous, though. The, like, preteen demographic, especially in line with some of the, like, teases we've been seeing, very rarely do you get a spin-off for preteens that's good. It's like, an adult spin-off. They're very rarely good, right? We usually know what that means. It means, well, we can put like drugs and boobs and sex on the scene, so let's do that. But hopefully it's good. I don't want to judge it for the tropes of the genre. Hopefully it's good, and hopefully that huge set they're building is good. Old Burnham and Book. I didn't recognize Burnham. Like, I was glad when Book walked in. I was like, yeah, that is Burnham. New Starfleet uniform. Not as good as the last one, but, I guess it's a rule that we constantly need uniforms. I was on my phone for a lot of this, but if I'm going to be honest, like, I don't know. It just felt like the message was like, yeah, we've been saying this the whole season. I feel like that wasn't a revelation. Maybe I haven't learned anything because I started off where we ended. But even then, the show kind of seems to have dropped the idea of like, what is our meaning? Why did the progenitors create us? No one asked that. No one really spread that message. You could argue maybe Burnham learned when she learned the progenitors weren't even first. It kind of demystified them. But we never see, like, other people learn that. But even right when they get back to the ship, Stamets and Saru and stuff seem on board. I have a similar problem with Undiscovered Country, where Kirk, I don't remember exactly, I think it's when, like, the Chancellor gets assassinated. Kirk has a kind of moment where he learns, like, basically not all Klingons are evil. You know, not every Klingon was responsible for the death of his son. Not every Klingon is the enemy he's been facing. And then on that moment, literally the entire crew of the Enterprise also simultaneously telepathically realizes that not all Klingons are bad. A complete 180 from a view they had at the start of the episode. It just kind of felt like one of those. Your friend is making the costume. This one's pretty good. That's a good Admiral uniform, but the Admiral uniform was always different. Oh, yeah. You know, no, wait. I was gonna say maybe this is why they made the original bridge so well in that earlier episode, but they didn't know they were doing this. This was like filmed afterwards, so maybe they just got lucky. But this one bothers me. I'd have to watch Calypso again. I mean, if I really do this for years, I'll probably eventually do watch-alongs of the short treks. But this just answers, like, okay, we tied up Calypso, which theoretically answers questions. Like, they made Discovery look like it did in the 23rd century, and they were gonna go hide it. You know, theoretically, we've fixed Calypso now. It takes place 1,000 years after it's like in the 33rd century. But, you know, if you actually think about it, it's Red Directive. They don't bother explaining why Discovery has to look like it did in the 23rd century, which is lazy. But they directly mention Kraft, right? They know about Kraft, who's the guy from Calypso. So they seemingly have knowledge that Kraft is going to come and find Calypso. And so they need to go put Discovery in some... they're going to find Discovery. They're going to put Discovery in some nebula specifically for Kraft, right? But that's in the future. So how does the Federation know this is going to happen? Because the Federation has outlawed time travel. And the Federation literally has no time travel technology. We have established by the Guardian of Forever, which went into hiding, that there is no time travel technology available in the Federation. So this mission, why do we know this is a thing we have to do? Why does it have to look like it's in the 23rd century? I mean, we're not sending it back in time. I don't think there's anyone who knows Discovery looks like it does in the future. So the reason it looks like it does is because that's what it looked like in Calypso. Really, I think they should have just learned their lesson and said we shouldn't make episodes that long ahead. Never set something up that far in advance unless you are 100% sure you can follow it through. But also, Calypso was sort of teased for season 3, where there was the burn and the Federation had collapsed. And this was why I'm trying to check. How long is Calypso? Do we want to watch it? I don't. I don't. But, like, I feel like Calypso implies, if not outright states, that the Federation doesn't exist. Or at the very least that it's not wherever they've hid Discovery. So now, because you've set Calypso in the future of the 32nd century, have we established that the Federation collapses again? So anything that happens in Academy, or quite frankly, any era of the franchise, essentially has no meaning because we know the Federation's gonna end. And if we take it a step further, if the Federation does collapse or end, the universe falls under hard times, we've just thrown away the technology that lets life exist in the universe. So have we established that action might have led to the final death of all life in the universe? Or at least in the galaxy? There's a lot of questions here. I was really bored and checked out. I was wondering, is Burnham, like, going off the sunset to die? But no, she does mention there is a line that her and her crew are gonna leave after they go. But also, it's casually acknowledged that Zora's sentient, and we're just sitting her in a nebula for 1,000 years. Calypso mentions that it's been a millennium. Are we not going to talk about that? Are we not going to acknowledge that that's absolutely horrific? I guess we're not. oh well, like, it's the moral that life is disposable. You threw away your life-making machine. Um, yeah, there are just a lot of weird questions that were caused because you said something that didn't need to be there and didn't really do anything. And also, hey, true Discovery fashion, the extra scene they film at the end has Michael. It has Book because Book is with Michael, and those are the only characters we see contemporarily. Oh yeah, that's right. Tilly is now the longest-serving Academy instructor in Federation history, which is fascinating because we've had Vulcan instructors. And there are species who live a lot longer. In fact, would like Paella or whatever her name is, Pelia from Strange New Worlds, who is literally immortal. How long is? Hang on, Star Trek Pelia. Pelia. I have to check this because there is no way in hell that little line isn't an outright contradiction to something that was said at some point. So why would you write it? Because who did she teach? She taught, like, number 1, I know. There's a 22nd. When the New World economy ended and the US currency ended, Pella still resided in Vermont, living in a bunker. She was friends with Amanda Grayson, who was one of the first human... Oh, yeah. And who later revealed her Lanthanite heritage, too. So one would presume that she wasn't teaching... Like, she couldn't have been teaching so long, because otherwise the Academy would have noticed she's immortal. Instructor at Academy. For a time. We don't know. She taught Scotty. She gave Una middling grades. Like, no way in hell is Tilly actually the longest serving, unless Tilly is, like, immortal now. Maybe Tilly's a Lanthanite. That'd be a plot twist. Not really. Wait, also, if we establish that Tilly can never leave the Academy, because she's totally going to be in Academy. If there's ever a line about her, like, they can't kill Tilly. If assuming Tilly is in Academy, which I don't think we've confirmed, this line has now made Tilly immortal. You can't kill Tilly. So it's removed any tension if they ever do a plot of Tilly considering leaving, Tilly's life being in danger because Tilly can't die. And in fact, because we've seen Federation headquarters, they weren't, like, there's always the rule that they're never going to destroy the Federation. But you've now made Academy a prequel, meaning whatever threat is facing the Federation in Academy, because we know there's some new threat, we know it's going to fail, because this is the future. So well done, Discovery. You've undermined Academy with the final scenes you filled. I'm attacking this episode. I don't know why. You've put me in a real... You made me sit through that. I was bored. I try not to be too negative, but hey, this is our last one. I don't know. I don't think I'm too negative. It's really just this season. I think it's like a straw that broke the camel's back type situation here. If all the reviews ever always became this, I'd stop, but we still get plenty of good. And hey, you want good? Let's go to tomorrow. They could have them in the tube. In that moment, they had to let them go. And next season, something comes back. I'm not sure what you're referencing there. Oh, hang on. I've missed a bunch of comments. It would be cool if it was the point. Oh, yeah. You know what else I didn't realize? You know that little infinity thing Burnham got? I literally didn't clock until she tried to give it back to Kovarex that's how you enter the infinity room thing. Because, right, that's when Burnham gets it at the start of the episode. And then they go into the infinity room, like the big white room. And I always thought this was, like, part of the puzzle. It was something that's going to come back later, like it's in the opening credits. And I'm like, this is going to come back. And then I realized, no, it's just how you get into the infinity room. But yeah, I mean, you kind of added more covert ops to Starfleet, which I don't like. all this red directive and like it's not Section 31, but Daniels basically runs Section 31 now. You know, it's, I don't know. Bye. My Discovery is gone. What's my reaction? Bye. Shall we do the kind of overview of Discovery? Because a lot of people would mention as well, you know, Discovery, it is safe to say it was very hated when it first came out. It received um, a lot of accusations that it was Star Trek in name only. And a lot of stuff that would come up is Enterprise would have a lot of similar complaints. It's like it's not real Star Trek. And now, of course, I don't think anyone says that about Enterprise, now that we've seen Discovery. But, so a lot of people were like, oh, your opinion will change in the future, which was really annoying to hear at the time, because I hate that argument, right? Because it's unprovable. There's no way that you can prove the assertion, my opinion will change over time. And there's no way I can argue that it won't change over time, other than to wait. And so we're both just sitting there angrily. But anyway, Season 1 of Discovery, of course, was the first Discovery in ages. And it was bad. It was bad. It fumbled a lot of messages. It was weirdly war. It played fast and loose with the rules. It was bad. My opinions haven't changed whatsoever. It was bad. Season 2 was exactly the same, except it didn't make sense on a plot level at all. It was bad. Did Discovery get better since those first two seasons? Yes, not because Season 1 and Season 2 got better, but because now 3/5 of Discovery wasn't god-awful. Because Season 3, right? At this point, God, at this point as well, remember, I think the only other Star Trek was Picard Season 1, which, while better, also fumbled a lot with some kind of core utopian values. But Season 3, I really did work on myself, because, you know, new not showrunner, like director, maybe it was showrunner. Like, you had Michael Paradise, someone new. You threw it into the 32nd century, so, you know, you no longer have the prequel problem. You can make your tech as advanced as you want, which I think was good. But, you know, we knew the burn. We didn't know what it was, but we knew the burn had made the Federation collapse. I was so sure I wouldn't like it, just the description. I didn't think you could do Starfleet in the 32nd century. Like ship design, I had very little faith in the writers of the show. There were still a lot of problems, like everything was like Burnham was the center of everything. But I really did work to be like, you know what? Let's go in with an open mind. If I hate it, it's because this season has made me hate it, not because of all this baggage. And you know what? It was good. It was worth it. Like, I remember after that first episode where you've got the guy in the, you know, the station, and he's got the whole, like, if you watch my Poorly Explained, like, I do like that series, the Poorly Explained. I basically go over this where I'm like, another Discovery, yada yada. But he's got the thing that's like, I've been here for the last 40 years. Before, like, from, like, my father before me, waiting for someone like you. And it's like, for the first time, like, I got emotional about Star Trek since Enterprise. And yeah, I will admit, I've said before, I've since tried to rewatch that season, and I couldn't get through it. I don't know what it was about it. I just kind of couldn't get through it. It was for the Poorly Explained, and by those last few episodes I do off memory, and Poorly Explained, and I don't know why. It's a shame to think that it might actually be a lot worse than I remember. Maybe knowing the answers makes it less interesting. Maybe all I'm left with is the plots more. Maybe it has a bit of like the bad mystery box problems. which is weird because I don't remember it as a mystery box. But no, it at least at the time it redeemed Discovery. Making Burnham a captain hid the problems with her. There were still issues there, but by the time we get around to season 4, I think a lot of that cleaned up. You can still very clearly see the legacy of, like, now it's Vance who goes against Starfleet, but it's Vance, so he basically is Starfleet. In season 4, First Contact story, I'm again worried if I rewatch it, it's worse. I think this season will probably be worse on a rewatch, but I'm a sucker for First Contact. I liked it. Season 3 fumbled, like, the whole ending with the Cyrus Treaty and all that. I think season 4 ended great. I was like, yeah, First Contact, it was good. I mean, I enjoyed the story. I really don't remember specifics, but those, I think they hit their higher beats. I'd still, though, I'm just not, I don't care about any of the characters. I like Saru and Tarina, but that's it. And you can't carry a season. And honestly, I think in the end, that's why Discovery's ended. Is it doesn't convey discussion. It's a very hard show to talk about, and there's not a lot of theorizing. There's not a lot of discussion afterwards. It just had too many weak starts. I mean, even before production, like before season 1, I was already pretty sure I wouldn't like it. Just everything that we'd been coming through, and I was right, yeah. But it just, if it found its footing, which even then I think is an if, it just took too long. Will I ever rewatch Discovery? I guess there's a big question, and the answer is yes. For one, my wife and I are going through Star Trek, and unless they abandon Discovery, we're going to be a watch through there. And for the record, if they do abandon Discovery, I'll probably also just leave with them. But I would also like to do another chronological watch through. I did one before Discovery was announced. I actually think I was in the middle of one when they announced Discovery. And so it was like, oh, well, this is going to be out of date. But I think it would be interesting, right? It might make it worse just because of all those, like, inconsistencies. It'll be interesting, though. Like, I think Enterprise can lead into Discovery fairly well. Discovery into TOS, I don't know. Hang on, I'm going to get up. Oh, by the way, breaking news. Star Trek Chronology Project has finally realized that animated Star Trek is animated Star Trek, and they realized that like so many people use this website. Link in the description. In the chat. They added animated Star Trek to the watch-through guide. So yeah, right now but I want to wait till they're done making Star Trek, or I'm retired, and it's like, look, at this point, I'm gonna die before they stop making Star Trek. Because if you were to watch it, you watch Enterprise as is, but you skip whatever the last one is. That's not a joke. What the heck is it? These are the voyages. But then you get kind of interesting. You get Q&A, the short trek, then the Cage. You mix in some short trek with Discovery. But of course, when Discovery's, like, bungs off into the future, you leave. You keep going. You get Ask Not. You get, Strange New Worlds. And so I don't know. It might be really hard to bridge that gap of, 20 episodes? But I really like seeing the episodes in chronological context. I highly recommend, at least with classic Star Trek, so I can't speak with experience, but I highly recommend doing a chronological watch through if you haven't already, just not as your first watch through. It's just not gonna be, I wouldn't recommend it. But I'd loved it. What I did, right, and I do it again, is the chronological watch through, exactly the link I put in chat. But after every episode, I went to the, it's like canon, or there's some page in Memory Alpha that has canon references, and you get so much from that. It really makes Star Trek feel like a world, because you get a lot of the stuff you would have missed. To just such tiny details. So yeah, afterwards, actually, I realized I'm being dumb. I can stream this. Here you go. Here's the Star Trek Chronology Project. So yeah, Enterprise. Then you get like the modern stuff. You plop into production order TOS with a short trek here and there. Here's where things get real fun. You get to watch Inner Mirror Darkly after Tholian Web. But yeah, some tasks, movies. Like, it's interesting because it largely is just watching Star Trek. Here's like 6 seasons of The Next Generation before you just watch essentially release order where everything's playing together. There's These Are the Voyages. But like, this is interesting. This was really interesting to see when all the 80s Trek happens in relation to each other. If you watch Trek in the 80s, you basically got this, I know. But yeah, it's I'd like to do it, you know, and it's a good excuse to kind of go through the whole franchise. Then here we go. We just pick off Voyager, Nemesis, and then you get a lot of new ones. That's where they've put those do they put those old scientists in here twice? Ooh. I don't know. I would have put that with Strange New Worlds. That's quite an important episode. I might watch that one twice. But yeah, and I think this would be interesting, right? Because we're watching it as it goes out. I think it'd be interesting to watch like Nemesis and then going on. Let Voyager bleed into Lower Decks, because this is how it actually works. Then let's let Lower Decks go into Prodigy. I mean, actually, I think this might be out of date. Star Trek timeline. I think Lower Decks and Prodigy overlap. Whoops. This is the one time you don't go to Memory Alpha, by the way. Wikipedia. That would take forever, man. A list like... No, I mean, I did it in a year. Granted, we've added modern Star Trek, but that's not nearly as long. It just depends how fast you go through. I mean, if you've watched all of Star Trek, you've already done it. My dad's going through. I don't know where he left off, but he was going through from my recommendations. Yeah, I guess Lower Decks and Prodigy will just overlap with season 4, but that'll be interesting, right? Then you, of course, let Prodigy bleed into the Supernova. You get your movies, you get Picard, and then you finally get the Future Discovery. And I guess we're always going to end with Calypso, but God, what an underwhelming end, I think. That's a depressing end. I want something after Calypso. Star Trek, get on it. David C., I saw some comments. They have dull, long arc, straightforward storylines, and none of it's particularly rewatchable. I prefer standalone episodes with an arc that runs through in a show in a more subtle way. I mean, I don't know if I would say I prefer all of classic Star Trek over all of modern. In fact, definitely, like, Lower Decks is probably... you can hate me, but Lower Decks is, like, better than TOS, I'm sure. And, like, Prodigy, like, TOS as a whole, not TOS as highlights. Because, bear in mind, TOS has got a lot of, you know, not, like, genre-defining episodes. Oh, I saw some cool stuff. I saw some, you know, you can buy, like, collector's things, which is like some original film of a movie or whatever. I saw it. That's where I went because the stream was delayed at like an antique show. There's a booth that had a bunch of film, and they had like original movie film, but also TOS film, like TV film from original Star Trek. And not even that, they had good episodes. They had Space Seed, City on the Edge of Forever. They had like a bit of the intro in one of the episodes. I was like, dang, not for $70, but like you got good episodes here. But yeah, by the way, 897 installments of Star Trek according to the Chronology Project, which doesn't have season 5. Oh, so we passed 900. That might have been a while ago. What was the last Star Trek? Lower Decks? Yeah, I think they're just missing season 5. So we had episode 900 this season. Meh, honestly. Next week, we will go back to TOS. I think I'll keep Doctor Who on Sunday. It just gives the UK people time to watch it if they want it on broadcast to do it on our Saturday. So we'll go back to TOS. We've got Arena, the Gorn episode. At some point, I will do the Star Trek like Resurgence game, the Telltale, whatever it was called. I might do that instead of Doctor Who on weeks where I can't get Caden, because he is moving across country with my parents soon, so he's gonna be frantic through a lot of like 10th Doctor stuff. But yeah, I'm delaying as the person who watched Calypso is typing in the Buffer Time Discord. And I want to know what they say about Calypso. But my throat hurts. They are typing. Don't read the username. That's definitely a bad idea. Come on, we're live. Buffer Time. I'm pretty sure this is actually the Buffer Time channel themselves as well. Buffer Time, please. Please, Buffer Time, please. They're typing. Faster. It's never really addressed in either the Short Trek or Discovery. I'm glad they did give us setup for Calypso. I just wish it had more stakes than saving a dude in an escape pod. Yeah, so I guess, the Federation, it's never addressed. It's just, it's another kind of waste of life. I mean, you could write something that goes in here. I'm sure someone will. It'd be neat if Star Trek had, like, the Big Finish treatment with Doctor Who, where there's, like, a company that goes in and gets the original actors and writes this. Because, like, theoretically, what's the guy, Cliff, or Clue, or whatever his name is, from Calypso could go back in time to now and tell Discovery this has to happen. I would have liked it better. You'd need a justification for time travel, but I probably would have had them send Discovery to the past so that it looks like it waited. But, like, I know, again, it's just always messy. Calypso was a mistake. It just... You weren't confident enough that you could have actually paid it off, and so yeah, then you redesigned it, and it would have been cool if it's actually how we did season 3. It's just a big shame that it's not how we got to season 3, because I don't know if that was the intent, but a lot of people assume like they waited a millennium, is that the crew went to the future but Discovery had to go the long way around. But yeah, this was much better than the episode I just watched. Discovery is gone. I feel very meh about that. But you know what? It for all its flaws, it did revitalize Star Trek, and it gave us Lower Decks and Prodigy. And you know what? Even the better bits of, like, Picard, Strange New Worlds, which I'm admittedly way more meh on than the general fan base. But it also gave us the 32nd century. It gave us my new favorite era of Starfleet design. It gave us a wonderful new era to explore, I think, in this century. It might directly give us Academy, which, for all we know, it could end up being the best Star Trek ever. It's probably not going to be. But, I mean, I do have Discovery merch. I'm looking at some Discovery ships next to me. Overall, you know what? It was fine. Like, I really don't know how you could talk about Discovery in, like, the vast ways of comedy. Did it ever have, like, an exceptional episode, Discovery? Because I'm not sure it did. It is really, a shame. It doesn't have the breakout. I mean, so some people say Sound Asunder, which sucks. Some people will say the other one that sucks. What is it? I think it's the one where, like, they go to that religious planet of, like, World War III soldiers. People liked that one, didn't they? I don't remember much about it. But I'm going to wrap things up here. I'll have to change my logo, my little thumbnail logo again. You know what? It gave us that uniform. Looking at my thumbnail. God, I do love that uniform. But for now, Academy. Do we know when it comes out? I don't know. I think Lower Decks is next in the fall. So if you don't do my watch-alongs, you can come back with me with Lower Decks in the fall, unless Prodigy does, like, a stealth release before then. And of course, we got 15th Doctor. for the next few weeks. We got David Tennant after that. We're watching 10th Doctor stuff. Who doesn't love some David Tennant Doctor Who? So I will stop rambling, say thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you